Hi guys, and welcome to my podcast. I'm about to start the podcast right now. I just started the recording for those of you people that are visual like me. So let's go. Hello and welcome to the Wyfe Up podcast. I am so grateful that you guys have stopped by to hang out with me. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen in. And feel free, please, to leave me some feedback. If there's anything that you want me to discuss or talk about, any topics relating to marriage, related to covenant marriage, husband and wife things, please let me know, because I really want to talk about that. That's what this show is about. I am a Christian woman. First and foremost, I am in love with God unabashedly. I am in love with God. I am a wife to an amazing husband, and I am the mama bear of 6 amazing kids. If you want to know more about me, you can listen to my first podcast in which I kind of explain all of that. Anyway, let's get into it. Today's topic is be careful about who you allow to pour into your marriage. Who are you allowing to pour into your marriage? Now, believe it or not, most people don't really think about someone pouring into their marriage, right? You're married, you have your husband, you have your wife, and your friends are there pouring into your marriage. Believe it or not, your mom and dad are pouring into your marriage. There is someone that is speaking either life or death into your marriage. Let me give you a little bit of an example. And so I was married before. I mentioned that before. I was married before. I'm not proud to be a divorcee, so don't even try and come for me. I am not proud to be a divorcee. I believe that if I had turned my marriage over to God, God could have changed things around. I will never know until I meet God, but I didn't. I repented and was forgiven. And so I am married again, but that's, we'll talk about it another time. What I was going to say is that in my marriage before, I didn't have someone to pour into me, to pour life and to speak life into my marriage. I didn't. I didn't surround myself with Christian friends. I wasn't involved in church. So the most part of my thinking was just coming from my own head and the world, fleshy thinking, worldly thinking. And so when things got bad, I was just like, okay, but it wasn't just like that. We had been together, broken up, been together, broken up, been together, broken up. And so we had moved overseas. And at this time, our marriage was just like hanging on by a very thin thread. Actually, in my mind, it was just done, right? And I didn't have anybody to say, hey, this is what you need to do. Let's just pray. Let's just talk to God about this. Let's see what God has to say about this marriage. Let's see if God's going to turn this marriage around for the sake of yourself, for the sake of your legacy, for the sake of your 5 kids that the 2 of you have together. Like, I didn't have that person in my life to do that. I had friends. And on top of that, I had Christian friends, but I didn't have anybody say to me, hey, this is what you need to do. All of my friends, and maybe this was done subconsciously, the friends that I kept in my life were the people that were just going to allow me to do whatever it is that I wanted to do. And if divorce was the answer, then they were going to be like, all right, girl, whatever you want to do, I got you. That's the type of friendship that the world says that we're supposed to have. But the truth of the matter is, as Christian wives, you need to have Christian women in your life that's going to speak over you and over your marriage. You need to have Christian women in your life that are going to tell you right from wrong. And you need to have Christian women in your life that are going to pray for you and intercede for you. So like I said, I didn't have that in my first marriage. And even though I was a Christian, I believed in God. I wasn't involved in church, and I prayed to God every night, but I didn't pray on that behalf. I was just hurt and I was just done. And so that meant that in my mind, divorce was the answer. I also came from a long line of divorce. My mother was divorced and remarried. My grandmother was divorced and remarried. I believe my great-grandmother was divorced and remarried. On my father's side, my grandmother was divorced and remarried. I never heard anything about my great-grandfather, so I believe my great-grandmother was either he died or she was divorced, but she was raising all of those kids by herself. And so we're talking about both sides of my family, women raising kids on their own or with a stepfather in the home. And so you see that enough, you think in your psyche that is okay. And that from a very young age, that was poured into me. That was poured into my marriage, believe it or not. Even before I got married, somewhere along the line in my mind, I thought it was okay to get divorced. That's when someone's pouring into your marriage, or rather something is pouring into your marriage even before you get married. And so a lot of people get married already knowing people that are divorced, and maybe knowing people that are remarried, and they're seemingly happy. And so they think, well, it's okay. I can get, if this doesn't work out. I've even heard people use the word starter marriage, like a starter home, the one you're not going to stay in. That's just your beginner home, and then you're going to sell it, and then you're going to get your forever home. That's how I've heard people talk about marriage, how I've heard people talk about their husbands. Oh, that's just my starter husband. That is insane. That it doesn't make any sense. So anyway, I wanted to do this episode. I'll tell you in a minute what prompted me to do this episode. But I wanted to do this episode because I really wanted to speak into your life and into your marriage. And just to let you know that if you surround yourself with women, godly women, that understand and have discernment, that knows that if your husband comes home and he's in a bad mood and he happens to say something to you, and y'all get into an argument, that doesn't mean you get divorced. And argument after argument after argument still doesn't mean it's time for a divorce. It just means it's time for a change. And so I know that a lot of us have girlfriends, right? Friends that are girls, our best friends, or aunties, cousins, neighbor kids, neighbors. We all know someone in our life who might be telling you to leave your husband. Point blank. Y'all go through something, you and your husband get into an argument, and your friend is like, girl, you need to leave him. And you're like, yeah, I know, because I'm so tired of this and I'm so tired of that. And he just gets on my nerves, and I don't even like him anymore. And I don't even love him anymore. And you know what? I'm just done. I'm so done. I'm so over this. Every time we get together, we're arguing, and we're arguing over money, and we're arguing over the kids, and we're arguing over his mama, and we're arguing over his baby mama. Like, I am so sick and tired of this. I'm done. I am so done. Right? And your friend is hearing all of this, or cousin, mom, whoever it is that person is in your life. You know who that is. And she is hearing everything. That person you confide in, right? And she's going to be your ride or die in the sense that she's going to be like, girl, he wouldn't be talking to me like that. And she's telling you all the things that you want to hear at that particular moment because that's what you want to hear. That's where you want to be. You want to be in that spot where someone is in agreement with you, so that way if you do decide to leave, you got somebody on your side, like boistering you up, telling you, yeah, you need to leave this dude. You need to leave your husband, your covenant. Now, listen, I'm not talking about in crazy dire situations, in dire situations where, your marriage is just all bad. I'm saying like if he's, adultery and, physical abuse and abusing the children, things like that. I'm not talking about severe circumstances. I'm talking about the rest of us. The rest of us that married the guy, we was in love with him. He was our boo babe, best friend. And we married this guy, and we're just like, you know what? I want the whole world to know how much I truly love him. And that's my dude. And y'all make like your own wedding vows, and you're standing there at the altar with this dude, and it's till death do you part. But it's not really, right? Because a lot of times after the honeymoon is over, that's why that saying is there, right? After the honeymoon is over, then you start looking at each other like, I thought I knew you, but I really don't know you. And then you know what? Maybe you shouldn't be married to this person because maybe they weren't the one that God had for you. I just want to tell you something, right? Before you make those choices, before you decide, I don't want to be with this person anymore and I'm going to sign divorce papers, before you do that, you owe it to yourself and you owe it to your husband to turn it over to God and see what God has to say about that. If God releases you, then you'll know, right? If God releases you, then you'll know. But if he doesn't, and you're just taking it upon yourself to leave, oh my gosh. You have to have somebody in your life, a friend, church friends, church sisters and brothers, pastors, that are going to pour into you. They're going to listen to what you got to say. That's going to tell you the truth. And that's going to tell you that you need to pray, that you need to turn this over to God. But speaking of pastors, so there's a pastor that I heard a sermon of his a couple of years ago. And that sermon that he did, that is what made me spark this topic today. And so I'm not going to call the name of this pastor. Some of you are going to be able to figure out who I'm talking about just by the description a little bit. Some of you won't. It is what it is. I'm just not going to call his name right now. But this pastor is married to a very, very famous pastor's daughter. Okay. And he was already I guess, semi-famous. I had not really heard of him, but he was already, had already made noise in his own circle. So people knew who he was as a pastor. And then he married this famous pastor's daughter. And so before he got married to her, he was doing this video, and it was about identifying your soulmate, right? And so I had listened to it because I was just curious. I'm like, okay, well, I'm curious as to because I honestly don't believe in the whole soulmate thing per se. And here's why. I just believe that the idea of a soulmate is kind of a worldly, romantic, mystical notion that has the potential to make a lot of us wives suddenly look at our husbands crooked, right? Or suddenly look at our husbands as not enough. Because we're thinking that this soulmate is out there after we've married this guy. Things are getting a little bit tough because we're not getting along, not seeing eye to eye, arguing, whatever the case may be. And we're starting to look at him like, maybe you weren't my soulmate. Maybe you weren't the person that God sent for me. Maybe I was mistaken and my soulmate is out there somewhere. And I need to get rid of you. I need to get rid of you so I can find him. That's dangerous. That's dangerous, right? So anyway, this pastor, I made some points off of the things that he said, and I just want to go over a few of them, right? Because this is what sparked me to do this. Now, having said that, he didn't make, as far as I could see, that video talking about man and wife. It was a Trojan horse. He was just telling people how to find your soulmate in life, right? How to find this person and rather how to identify, not how to find, how to identify if this person is your soulmate. But in it, hidden in that message, he was talking about husbands and wives and divorce and all this type of craziness that he put in there. And I was just like, son of a gun. I can't believe that this is what you're talking about. Like, I really can't believe that you as a pastor, that this is what you're saying to your flock. And this particular video had millions of views. Okay? So it wasn't like 1 or 2 people saw it. No, over 1 million people saw this video. And so it was dangerous to me. You guys can tell me what you think. Anyhow, so he started off by identifying what a soulmate was. And he even used God's name in the definition. Now, for me, you use God's name. I'm like, okay, well, maybe it's in the Bible. So I went looking. In the Bible. I went Googling it because I couldn't find it. And then, I went to different sources thinking, okay, soulmate has got to be in here. It's not. Now, if I'm wrong, you guys can tell me. Please, if you locate that word soulmate in the Bible, please let me know. Please, because I really would like to know, because I might have missed it, because I don't know everything about the Bible, right? But I am a woman that is hungry for God. I'm hungry for the word. I want to learn. So please, if you find it, let me know. Anyway, so I couldn't verify it. Since it was no mention in the Bible, in my mind, that meant it was a man-made word, right? It was a man-made terminology for someone that, in the way he put it, someone that God has specifically for you. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe that God has people specifically for us. But I also know that our God is omnipotent. And our God knows that we might not necessarily make it to that person that he has for us. Because we are going on our own path, our own free will. And we end up with people that we find on that path, or at the club or whatever, right? We end up with people that we find along that path. And then we want that person to be Mr. Right because it seems right, right? What happens to all of those people? Do you just give up on the marriage and just say, no? I believe that God has someone in mind, but I also know that our God has a solution. Our God is omnipotent. He already knows you're going to marry Bubba, Kenny, or whoever, right? He already knows you're going to marry this guy. He already knows you're going to have problems. And he already knows that you may cry out to him, in which case he already has a solution for you. In other words, God can give you beauty for ashes. You guys already know that. If you didn't know, I'm here to tell you right now. All right, so that was the first thing. The soulmate word wasn't in the Bible. I didn't see it. So I'm like, okay, you making this up. So this was his own definition, right? And the definition, it could be in Webster's dictionary. The word soulmate exists. It just, I haven't found it in the Bible, which does not mean that, which means, in my opinion, that God might not have said, this soulmate I have for you, and you're not to go marry anybody else. I'm going to place him in your life no matter what path you're on. No, that doesn't make any sense. All right. Oh, also, I forgot to mention really quickly that I have a YouTube channel. I am filming as I am talking. If you are a visual person like I am, please go over to my channel. It's called Wyfe Up. If you like what I'm saying, the messages that I'm bringing, or rather my videos or my podcast, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And give me feedback. I would love to hear from you because I am on a mission to save marriages. I am passionate about marriages. I am passionate about people sticking together and letting God do the work. God, our God is so amazing. What I've seen him do in my own marriage, oh my gosh, I have to share. And that is why I started this podcast, because I want to help save as many marriages as possible. And sis, this is for wives, but husbands, if you are listening, please, 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 I want you to write in. I want you to send me messages. I want you to let me know if there's something you want me to talk about, a subject you want me to talk about that your wife isn't receiving from you, as long as it's PG and on God, we could talk about it. I'm good. We could talk about it. I would love to hear from you. So anyway, he goes on, back to this pastor, he goes on to say that there are two types of marriages. Marriages that God has joined together and marriages that you, meaning us, have joined together, right? I agree with that. I do. I agree with that. I believe that we find people on our path. We think we're in love. We think that's our boo, and we get married. I do believe that. I agree with that. Many women marry men before we develop a true relationship with God. That happens a lot, right? You know God, but you got one foot in the church and one foot in the club, and you still kind of wilding out. And then you meet this guy, and you all get married, and then you kind of turn your life really, really over to God, and you take a stock, and you're like, whoa, what did I do? What did I do? No matter, you're still in that marriage. That's your husband. So now you relying on God, because now God is your focus, right? You don't worry about the husband. You let God work on the husband. Girl, anyway. So then, let's see. He said that there's an assumption that God has put together every couple that gets married. Not every person assumes that, but a high majority. I kind of agree with what he's saying. A high majority of people do think that this is the one God sent for me, because God knows me. He knows my heart. He knows my needs. And this person loves me and is in love with me and wants to take care of me. And he's the best husband. He's going to make an amazing husband and father. And this is it. This is who God sent for me. Most people do think that, especially if you're a Christian, you do think that, right? If all the dots line and all the boxes check off, you think that, right? We think that. So should I say? So I agree with that for the most part. He said religious people condemn divorce. That's partially true, because Christians can be harsh when it comes to God's word. Because why? It doesn't negate the fact, right? However, that doesn't negate the fact that God said in Malachi 2:16, "For I hate divorce, says the Lord, the God of Israel." It says it. Look it up for yourself, Malachi 2:16. So God hates divorce. So that's one of the reasons why Christians are harsh when it comes to divorce, because you read it in the Bible, it says God hates divorce. So, you're not going to advocate for it. I'm divorced. I don't advocate for divorce at all. I'm actually quite the opposite, because I've seen what divorce can do. I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it. I've seen the effects it has on your children. I've seen the effects it has on your legacy. I see the effects it has on your lineage. I see the effects on everything. I've seen it. I've lived it firsthand. So I know. I do not advocate for a divorce at all. It has to be severe circumstances. It really does. So that's the reason why I believe that religious people condemn divorce so much, because of that. He then goes on to talk about, he's pointing back to the religious people condemning divorce. Why? Because this man is divorced. This pastor that's talking is divorced, right? Now, not judging him. I don't know why he got divorced. But I will say that it is harder for us flock to look at pastors who are divorced, because it's like, well, you on a hotline to God. Why are you getting divorced? If you already believe that God is all-knowing and omnipotent and you have faith that the Lord can change things, then why are you divorced? Because if there's no hope for you, what about us? But I believe that he knows that. And so he goes on to say, he's talking about his upcoming nuptials. He wasn't married at the time. He was about to get married to this famous pastor's daughter. And then he says, let's see. And she's amazing, by the way. She's amazing. I love her. I love her ministry. I think she is spot on, point on. I love this girl. I'm not going to call her name, but I think she's awesome. Her story, her testimony is incredible. And so he's alluding to his upcoming nuptials with this person, and to which the crowd is applauding greatly, right? And he then says, this is transparency. I'm just being transparent. He said, if you don't like it, you can go home. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Oh, so basically you're saying that if the people in the audience don't like the fact that you're saying that, you know, religious people condemn divorce because you're divorced, and anybody that condemns you, that makes them religious, then they can go home if they don't like what you're saying? I get it. And then it dawned on me, in my opinion, this is just my opinion, it seemed like this pastor was trying to justify why he was divorced. I believe he said he was married for 17 years to his ex-wife, and they had kids together, and now that they're divorced, they have an amazing relationship, and him and his kids are amazing, and so on and so forth, and that's all well and good. But if you don't like the fact that he's divorced, you could leave. He's about to get married to this new person, right? All right, so what else? He then says that divorce isn't, he then says that the problem isn't divorce, that the problem is bad marriages. Wait, what? What? You can't say that. You can't say the problem isn't divorce. The problem is divorce. Do you know what the rates of divorce are? And on top of that, the rates of divorce for Christian people, Christian marriages. Listen, if you guys did not know this yet, we're not supposed to, as Christians, we're not supposed to look like the world. We're supposed to look different from the world. We're supposed to have happy marriages. We're supposed to be prosperous. We're supposed to be millionaires and billionaires. We're supposed to have all of God's goodness at our fingertips. We do. Actually, we do have all of God's goodness at our fingertips. We're supposed to be able to display that for the world so that when people see us, they see light. But what's happening is people are looking at us. We look exactly like everybody else. So people are like, well, she's a Christian and look at what all the stuff she's going through. She's just as broke as me. Her marriage is just as busted as mine. Her kids are as wayward as my kids are. What is this whole Christian thing about? Because I'm cool. No, it's not supposed to be like that. I'm not saying that the enemy isn't out here trying to wreak havoc. What I'm saying is we have a problem solver, and that is God. We have a healer, a provider. God is our everything. Jesus is our everything. And when you call on him, listen, y'all playing with your lives. You're playing with your marriages. Don't do that. Our Father is so amazing. I'm telling you, he knows everything, and he's waiting for you to reach out to him so that way he can fix some things in your life. It all starts with faith. And just FYI, in case you didn't know, it is impossible to please God without faith. And if you don't have faith that God is going to heal you, if that God can heal your marriage, that he's going to do all the things that he says he's going to do that's in the Bible, then you're already starting out on the wrong foot. You put faith on your marriage and watch God work. So anyway, divorce, he said the problem is divorce. Divorce destroys families. Divorce destroys legacy. Divorce produces children without direction and adults who think it's okay to get divorced. There's so many things I could say on what divorce causes. So the fact that he said that the problem isn't divorce, it's bad marriages is insane. Bad marriages are fixable. Obviously, he didn't know that. Obviously, he didn't believe that. Because if he did, then there's a high probability that God could have fixed his marriage. But he didn't. It didn't. And again, I don't know what they were going through. And I'm not judging him. I'm just looking at the fruit. So I'm not judging him, I'm judging his fruit. I guess you could say that. And as a pastor and a man of the cloth and a man who is leading people, the reason I had a problem with this whole message is because when you start seeking out your soulmate, again, I mentioned it before, it makes you, as a married person, as a married woman who might be going through things in your marriage, look at your husband like you're not him. You're not who God had for me, and therefore you and I don't belong together, and we need to get divorced. And since this pastor's like, the problem isn't divorce, it's bad marriages. If you are a person already caught in a marriage that you're not happy in, you could take that the wrong way. Now, again, I don't know if this pastor, I didn't say that before, but I don't know if this pastor has gone back and made a revision of that sermon that he did. I don't think so. I don't watch him, so I really don't know. I just think he should take it down completely. But I understood what he was trying to say for people who were not yet married, right? And so, yes, if you're looking for somebody that God has for you, yes, there are certain things that you need to, steps that you need to take. But as a married person listening to this, it's dangerous. Especially when you don't think divorce is a problem. That's a problem. So, he said that, so does this mean that if you feel that God doesn't put you and your spouse together, oh, sorry, I asked that question. I wrote it down in my notes. I'm sorry. So does that mean that if you feel that God didn't put you and your spouse together, that frees you up for marriage? I'm telling you, I know people that are thinking along those lines. A lot of women think that way. Oh, maybe he wasn't my soulmate. My soulmate is out there. He's somewhere out there in the galaxy, in the universe, waiting for me. And I can't get to him if I'm still married to this loser over here. Listen, that's dangerous. That's a dangerous way of thinking. And I was very upset when I heard that, because there's a lot of divorce in the Christian world. There's a lot of divorce. There's a lot of this wanting to think that the grass is greener on the other side. There's a lot of women that are walking around thinking that, well, if it's not right with him, I'll make it right eventually. Because why? They're looking at other Christian women that are divorced. This is why I don't want to be that woman. I am already divorced, but I don't want to ever tell anybody it's okay. Don't come to me talking to me about your problems about God, because I'm going to tell you, about your husband, because I'm going to tell you go to God. That's the very first thing I'm going to tell you. I'm going to listen to what you got to say, and I'm going to be like, okay, well, then this is the scripture you need to say over your marriage. This is what you need to do for your husband. Are you praying over your husband every day? I don't even want to see him. What? That's the man you married. I know I made a mistake. No, ma'am. That is your husband. That is your covenant. You made the decision to marry him. You don't get to just walk away. The world says you can walk away. This pastor thinks it's okay, apparently. He didn't say that, but just by undertone of what he was saying. Not with your soulmate. So then he started talking about purpose, right? He said, the last thing you want to do is get married and find your purpose. What if you wake up and find your purpose and realize you're not the same person who got married? Or your spouse does and realizes a counterfeit version of them married you? Then you will end up sacrificing your purpose for the marriage, or sacrificing your marriage for the purpose. Again, for all of us married women that are out there, and you've got your spouse that you said you were going to love, for richer, for poorer, for better, for worse, for in sickness and in health, for the rest of your life, till death do you part. Do you then find your purpose and walk away from your husband? Does it really have to be a choice? Do you think that God would say, listen, this is what I have for you, so now you need to walk away from this dude? Or this is what I have for you, so you're not going to be able to do that because you're married to him? Do you really believe that? I don't agree with that at all. I don't. I just don't. I think that there's partially some truth to what he's saying, because he said he's purpose driven. That's what he sees first, is purpose. But a lot of us aren't purpose driven first. A lot of us are love driven. A lot of us want to be with our spouses, the person that we married. Listen, I will continue this conversation in part 2. Come hang out with me. I have a lot more to say. I didn't I didn't touch on all of his points and everything that I wanted to say. So there will be a part 2. And I hope you guys come on over and join me. All right. So bye for now.